Welcome back to another episode of Health is Wealth. And thank you all so much for tuning into this week's episode. And as always, I am beyond grateful and thankful from the bottom of my heart to each and every one of you who is tuning into today's episode and also tuning in to help support the podcast. As every week I'm sharing a new episode, just sharing some words, thoughts of hopes, inspiration, and motivation, and hopes that it brings value into your life today. So I just share crazy things that I'm going through on my own crazy ride that we call life. So thanks again for being here. And what I wanted to talk to you about today is taking action, right? Making a decision and deciding. I think it's one of the most important things that we can learn how to do. Because I feel that indecision, not making a move here or there probably wastes more time than anything else in our lives. It's something that I at times struggle with myself. And it's because, I feel that I've got many different options and paths and things that I want to do and roads that I want to go down. And I can find my own self there in, this in-between where, I'm weighing things out. Should I do this? Should I do that? Maybe I'm here one minute. Maybe I want to go there 1 minute. But what I've really come to realize is, that itself is more detrimental than perhaps making a wrong decision. The reason for this being is, you're not always going to have all the right answers. You're not always going to always be prepared. You're not always going to know everything that you've got to do. And I think a lot of times that's what plays into our hesitation of taking action, making a decision, and making moves. Because rightfully, we want to do the best that we can to make sure that we are making the right decisions, going down the right path, doing the right things. That's fair. That's what we want to try to do, right? And make sure we're making the right moves and decisions. But a lot of times we're just not going to have all the answers. And I think sometimes getting stuck in that in-between of just not making a move, whether it's that hesitation of that, or you're just caught deciding between two different decisions, I always believe that's going to waste more time than anything. Because at least if you make a decision, you go left or you go right, then you know and can figure out where that outcome is going to lead you. And it may be down the path and it may be the decision that you want to make, but it may not be, right? But at least you have an answer. At least you know whether, it was the right choice or not. And if it was, great. If it was the right decision, the right path, the right move, then great. And if it wasn't, at least now you know so you could try again. But when we're just stuck in this in-between of not deciding, time is still going by and nothing is actually happening. So there's no way to course correct or figure out whether you're in alignment of where you want to go or the thing that you want to do or not. And so the message here today is just getting better at that, just deciding. And I think over time, obviously it's built just like muscles through repetition. If you're faced with several decisions, if you're faced with that moment where you got to make a move and you're not sure, learning how to rep our brain and mind to actually just pulling the trigger and doing that, making that decision, making that move. Now, obviously, if there's bigger decisions that are life course changing kind of decisions, we want to be a little bit more thoughtful of that, right? And take our time and really just kind of make sure that we're doing the best to ensure that we're making the best decision per that. But I think for a lot of different things, that are on the smaller level of decisions that could be made, if we just learn to flex that muscle of just, okay, I'm going to act on this, this is my move, and move with confidence on it, then it starts to build that in our brains. And it's something I've been trying to practice more so and more so over time, which is trying to get my brain to make a decision, having some kind of, guess as to what I want to do, this or that, knowing that I may be right or I may be wrong, and I just have to accept that. but that's not as important as, getting it right on the first time. More it is getting to the end of the path, that road of that decision, so I know whether it was the right one or not, And so over time, I believe it is something that we could absolutely train, and absolutely something we could build upon. But I think most important, it is, about making those quick decisions. And what I've also known over time too is, as the more I start trying to do that and trying to make certain decisions quicker and just going with certain things and not thinking too long on certain stuff, you begin to develop this confidence, right? And it's not the confidence that it's just because you're always going to make the right move, but it's this confidence that even if you are maybe making the wrong choice or going down the wrong path or doing the wrong thing, that you'll know that you'll course correct, make another decision, and perhaps that one's going to be right. And so the confidence is just knowing that you're going to figure out a way to figure it out, whether the first decision you made was right or wrong. If it was the right one, then great, you just keep going with that. But if it was the wrong one, you're not going to let it paralyze you or cripple you. You're going to be like, okay, we decided on that. I guess it wasn't the right decision. We're not going to sit here and dwell and be like, oh my God, I made this wrong decision. I knew I should have done that other thing. And just get back up and be like, okay, cool. Well, you at least know that this, scratch it off the list isn't an option. This, scratch it off the list. Did it work? What are my other options? Let's make another decision. And so I think the confidence gets built from that. It's just knowing that you'll bounce right back up and, and figure out something else. And I think that's the biggest thing that I do see from people who are successful, more so than anything else. One of the biggest things that continues them to become or be that is what I've seen and I've heard in interviews, or podcasts that I listen to with folks who are successful, is quick decision making, right? And even getting to the point of feeling more confident on bigger decisions to be made. Because you think of a perspective of somebody who's successful, they're making 1,000 times of decisions in a day. They don't have all of eternity to make decisions. When people are successful, are using running businesses, they're usually high up in their jobs, and so they tend to have a lot of decisions that they got to make. And most times they can't wait forever to make them because things got to go, things got to move. We got to keep the ball rolling. We got to keep the wheels spinning. And a lot of times they just have to use their best guess with the information that they've got. And they may not be ready to make a decision. They may not know a certain decision is going to work out 1,000%, but they know they got to act because that's what's going to keep momentum going. And, what I've seen from them is that ability to make those decisions and just know that, regardless of the outcome, they're just going to keep moving through, and it's not that they always make the right decision on the first try, but it's that if they make the wrong decision, they're not going to let that stop them. They're going to go on to the next decision to make, because it isn't about getting it right the first time. It's about figuring out what path is the right or wrong one. And if it's the right one, boom, you go with the next decision to make a good decision as well. But if it was the wrong one, it's course correct, and that's it, But again, if we sit in this in-between of being undecisive, then there's no way to know. There's no way to figure it out. When we spend more time contemplating than applying action to something to figure it out, you're just burning time, right? It's like being in a car full of gas and the engine's on and you're not going anywhere, but that gas is still burning. Time is running out on that engine, in the fuel tank. And so if you don't make a decision and decide to go, you're not going to get anywhere, but that gas is still burning, so time is still going. And so I think it's an important skill for us to learn, right? It's an important thing for us to be able to do is become better decision makers, becoming quicker at making decisions. Because again, I believe once we're able to do that, then we feel a little bit more confident about, hitting decisions left and right. And not worrying so much about is this decision going to be right or wrong, but more so being like, okay, let me make a decision. Boom, that was right. Okay, what's the next one? And if it was wrong, it's like, okay, I'm not going to let this stop me here. What's the next decision? Maybe this is going to be the right one. We spend more time on that versus just getting stuck, in the contemplation stage of weighing things out. I think it hurts us more than anything else, more so than making a wrong decision. Again, because if you make a wrong decision, you you have data, you have, an outcome, whether it was right or wrong. And if it was wrong, then now you know that that path, that choice, that decision was wrong. And now you can move on to the next. And I think that's how people really get to that next level of success and become very successful, as learning to make decisions quicker. So, if this resonates with you today, start making decisions, start, taking action on things. A lot of times we hesitate again because perhaps we got self-doubt, maybe we're unsure, maybe, we're scared, whatever it may be. But I think the more we learn to overcome those hurdles, the quicker we start to learn to make certain decisions, the better at it we get, the more comfortable, with it we get. And that's where the true confidence in making decision really comes from, because it's not about getting it right on the first time. Again, it's about knowing that even if you took the wrong path at first, you're confident in your ability to, redirect, to recourse, to try another path, to try another decision, to try another choice, to see if that's then the wrong one, because the name of the game isn't about just getting it right all the time. It's about momentum. It's about keeping everything moving, because that's what gets us down the roads and paths that we truly want to be on in life. And like I said, something I'm really doing my best to work on with myself when I have certain decisions, because I'll be honest, I can be very indecisive at times. I go back and forth, I do weigh those options, and again, when it comes to bigger decisions, you definitely want to be more mindful, of course. But if on the smaller decisions that, even if you make the wrong decision, it's going to be all right. I think we start learning to practice those ones and just start to flex and rep that mind muscle that does it, the better at with it we get. There's a lot more things over time now that I'm quicker to make decisions on. I'm better at, and again, it's not because I'm getting them right, but just because I'm more confident in my mindset that even if I get it wrong, I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to redirect course, and on my path to entrepreneurship and all these things, this is part of it, is still going forward with the unknown, but knowing whether you go left or right, you're going to figure out one way or another. So make some choices, take that time to start deciding and getting better at it, because I think it's a real skill set for us to learn if we want to become successful, become entrepreneurs, get to that level, because if we just sit there and just think too often and we don't make any moves, there'll never ever be any progress made. There will never be any direction that we're going in, because we can't if we're just stuck still, and the unfortunate part of that is we're just wasting time that we'll never ever get back. So have more confidence in yourself, believe in yourself, right? Remember that making decisions, and quickly and building that confidence isn't about getting them all right. It's just about knowing that even if you get it wrong, you're going to turn back, you're going to go around, you're going to figure out another path, and you're just going to keep moving. I think that's the biggest thing when it comes to decision making. I hope this helps you guys out today. As always, thank you so much for being here, and we will see you on the next one.